All right, peeps, we are on our last section for the week. This is the life on the home front. This is going to be talking about how what Americans are doing to help the war effort. We've talked a little bit about that during World War One, and those ideas are going to kind of come back again um, during World War Two. So this idea of going to war and being consumed with this war is right at the end of the Depression. And ultimately, besides the New Deal program and FDR's uh, government programs to kind of help get employment going, ultimately it is the war that gets us out of the Depression, gets people back to work, making money, and being able to spend and buy things. Average families' income doubled after the Depression, and there was 19 million new jobs, and a lot of those jobs were, oh, excuse me, a lot of those jobs were uh, military jobs. So, jobs for women. Why is there so many jobs for women? Think about it. A lot of the guys are being uh, drafted. Remember, 1940 is when the Selective Service Acts is initiated or started. So, a lot of working men are being sent into war. So this gives 65 million women went to work for government and in war industries. And war industries would mean weapon factories, building that stuff. And here, this is a very well-known picture, Rosie the Riveter, saying this is a propaganda. We can do it. Now, I just want to touch a little bit on you at the beginning or at the end of this or during this week. You have a propaganda assignment. We've done some propaganda assignments before. I find them just very interesting. I want you guys to create your own propaganda. And a propaganda is something where they sell something, okay? Sell art, sell a product, sell someone, like vote for someone, or sell an idea. And a lot of propaganda during the war is selling ideas. Now, this is where we're selling the idea to women. Say, hey, guess what? You can do it. You are just as good as your man or the men, and you can come in and fill in for them. So that propaganda is selling. Propagandas have color. They have bright picture and very clear picture, and they have a saying. So all of that, I want you to remember, put in your brain, because when you go, and I'll remind you when we get to that assignment about what is expected of propaganda. So now start thinking. It won't be just during World War II. You can do it about different things. But yes, Rosie the Riveter. So jobs for minorities. During this time, a lot of factories are discriminating against African Americans. They would not hire them. So African Americans threatened to march on DC if they were discriminated against for defense jobs or the military. And eventually there is an executive order, 8802, that bans this discrimination. Um, Jobs for minorities. Mexicans. It was called the Bracero. I apologize if I said that wrong. Bracero program. And the government allowed migrant workers to help with the harvest in the Southwest to reduce labor shortage. So, yeah, in the Southwest, there's going to be a lot of crops that need to be harvested. And due to all the men that are across or getting ready for war, they allowed migrant workers from Mexico to come in and help out. I don't know if you guys have seen this book or seen this movie, but it is absolutely fabulous. It's called Wind Talkers, and it is about the uh, Navajo language being used as code during World War II. We're going to watch just a little short segment about the Navajo code talkers here next, but it was the only Native American language that the Japanese could not learn. It was such a difficult language. So the American military enlisted Navajo men to be to transmit orders and information across, and in their native language. So it was the Japanese could not crack the code, which is very interesting. We're gonna watch this quick little video about it, and it shows pictures and excerpts from the movie and some other historical facts. So we'll just sit here and listen to this one.
They were considered the secret weapon of World War II, the Navajo Code Talkers, a small group of 400 Native Americans who spoke a language no one could crack.
Arizona, Arizona! To the Japanese, it was like speaking underwater, and it was impossible to encrypt by the Japanese themselves.
Staff Sergeant Ronaldo Jumbo holds this history close to his heart. The Code Talkers were his people, and his grandfather was one of them.
Artillery, code word.
It was plain and simple with the Navajo Code Talkers themselves. They had one mission, that was one mission only.
In code, Private Whitehorse.
To send and receive messages secretly.
Marines called upon the Navajo after Pearl Harbor. You see, the Japanese had learned other Native American languages, but the Navajo tongue was so difficult to understand, it became the perfect weapon.
Our people, back at home, we grew up using, pitchforks, using our hands, washing our clothes by hand.
This was totally foreign.
This is totally foreign to our people back then.
So, to familiarize themselves with Western war, the Code Talkers went through boot camp at MCRD and then basic training at Camp Elliott. This is Camp Elliott. It's now called East Miramar, but the Marines still train here, just like they did 70 years ago. The Code Talkers sent thousands of messages from 1942 to 1945 using phones like this one, warning troops about the enemy and relaying critical tactical details. Historians credit the Navajo for the victory at Iwo Jima and re-energizing Allied forces.
In my eyes, that changed the war.
Up 50! Fire for effect!
They were at the pivotal moment of when the U.S. needed our help. Regardless of the facts of what happened in our history, we still stood up and stood up for our country.
A country that is still using the skills of the Navajo during wartime.
We're proud of our heritage, and that's what we stand for. The Navajo Code Talkers themselves, set a really good example for those of us who are in the military as well.
So yeah, if you have not seen Wind Talkers, I highly recommend it. It is one of the better war movies that I have seen. Going back to what the Americans are doing to help for the war. A lot of people are moving to the Southwest, called the Sun Belt, and a lot of defense industry jobs were here. The South and West, I should say. But this kind of creates some problems for housing, because there's such a major influx, and also racism and segregation, because a lot of these jobs are going to be filled by wanting to be filled by African Americans, and that fight and that conflict is going to happen with in there. Zoot Suit Riots. Okay, have you heard that song, Zoot Suit Riot? Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of comes from this time period, but it's kind of interesting. The Zoot Suits versus the Victory Suits. Now, if you can see, the guy on the left here is wearing a Zoot Suit. There is lots of cloth in this. It's baggy. They have lots of buttons. It's very ornate. And lots of colors and plaid and all that stuff. And this is called the Victory Suits right here. It is not as baggy. It is not as flashy. It is very simple. Now, this is a zoot suit. This is a victory suit. Zoot suits were looked upon by, especially by the American military, as bad. It was a way of for people to, if you wore a zoot suit, you were kind of protesting the war, so to speak. You were rebellion. You were a rebel. That's what that kind of stood for. So, but if you were especially if you were military, you were required to wear these victory suits when you were not wearing your uniform. There was a lot of dissension between the two. The reason why the victory suit stood for pro-war was you use very little you use a lot less material than you did with the zoot suits. They were very simple. They were made by cheaper materials. There was only a certain amount of buttons that were only necessary, so it was very conservative, and it helped the war effort. Unlike what they said the zoot suit did, it was not conservative, and it was not conducive to the war. June 1943, 2,500 soldiers attack Mexican Americans and African Americans in LA. I can't remember the number of how many die, but there is a few that die. Sadly, though, in this time, the victims, which were the Mexican Americans, African Americans, they were the ones that were blamed for it. They did not blame the American soldiers. It was the victims' fault. So that was the Zoot Suit riot, and a little bit behind that. But interesting how depending on the choice of suit that you wore could tell you if you were pro-war or against the war. Okay, war effort at home. Now there's some things that are happening. Office of Price Administration kept prices and wages regulated to prevent inflation. Okay, here we're going to be looking at a lot of these propaganda posters, and I really want you to look at them, and I want you to think about them, because this is going to help you kind of with your oh my gosh, sorry guys, propaganda activity. So go ahead, please take the day off, meaning go ahead, take the day off. You are essentially, and I don't know if they could take vacation or not, but if you took the day off, that might save the boss a day of wages to pay. Middle one, are you doing all you can? Meaning, are you doing everything you can to help the war? Are you rationing? Are you driving slower? We're going to talk about that here, how that was supposed to help too. And then help bring them back to you. Find time for war work, okay? Raise and share food. Walk and carry packages. Conserve everything you have. Save 10% in war bonds. Make yours a victory home. So it kind of plays on your heartstrings. Do you want your soldiers to come back? All right. You're a victory home. That means that you raise and share food. Walk and carry packages. Why should you walk and carry packages? Yes, you are right. You are not using gasoline, okay? Gasoline it has to be rationed, because all the U-boats that have been bombing the passenger ships going over to, transport ships going over to Europe have oil on them. We're losing a lot of oil by ships being sunk. So that, in return, or in effect, makes America have to ration this gas. Rationing meat. Okay, you could not eat. You had to ration meat, so everyone could have it. Look at this is a picture of this lady at the butcher. Look at how much she's taken, and it says without rationing. And this lady just gets a little bit. But here on the opposite, with rationing, ration book they had, everyone gets to enjoy some of it. Also, gasoline. There was a 35 miles per hour speed limit, and help win the war, squeeze in one more. Look at here. This is talk about the epitome of carpooling. But yes, the idea of saving gas. Victory gardens, raising your own food for the war effort. The less food that you bought, the more that food could be used to send over for troops. Food is a weapon. Don't waste it. Buy wisely, cook carefully, eat it all. And then we have lots to eat this winter, won't we, Mother? Grow your own, can your own. So these propaganda posters are telling you, to reminding you to, you know what, your lifestyle at home, if it's good, will benefit the war. If it's not good in their eyes, it will hurt the war. Scrap drives. Okay, they needed the war effort needed all the rubber that they could, you know, for tires, for all that stuff. Tin to make weaponry, aluminum, steel, fat. Fat was put in for, I believe, used for something. It might say over here. We'll see. Yeah, right in front of me. Boom. Housewives, save waste fats for explosives. Yes, house fat was used for explosives. Over on the left here, don't be a dope and spread inside dope. Loose talk can cost lives. Oh, so they're talking about, you know what, be careful on what you say and what you spread. Here we got another one. They've got more important places to go than you. Save rubber. Check your tires now. Paying for the war needed $300 billion. Taxes covered 45% of it. E-bonds also sold about $150 billion to the public and banks. So the idea how to fund this war was through war bonds. And you bought a war bond and you were guaranteed that back plus a percentage. So it's kind of a loan you're giving to the government, and then they'll pay it back. And that is the end. That snuck up on me as well. So please go underneath here, click on your link, answer your 3 questions, and you're good to go. And then your last thing will be your propaganda, create your own propaganda poster assignment. It is not due this week. It'll be due the following Thursday, May 7th, I believe. So I'm going to give you 2 weeks to finish that. All right, guys, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon.